Jesus has just died on the cross. He died on the cross. He was buried in the grave. And after that burial, all of his disciples knew that he was dead. In fact, even people at the cross sitting there looking were hoping for something better, were expecting something really great, but they did not expect this amazing, miraculous thing that God is about to do. And what God does is he raises Jesus up from the grave. Jesus conquers death. He walks around for a little while and he makes connections. In fact, from the gravesite, he actually sends a woman to go and talk to his disciples and say, gather around, for I am going to come and visit you. And when he comes and visits them, he visits them a few times actually throughout the region, all over the place. But when he goes to visit his disciples, we find that he's got a message for them. And something miraculous happens at the end of Matthew chapter 28. He gives us the Great Commission. But before he gives us the Great Commission, I want us to look real quickly at what happens leading up to the Great Commission. So, as he's gathered his disciples around, he walks into the room, he's looking at them, talking to them. They are amazed, astonished. And verse 17 of chapter 28 says this: when the disciples saw Jesus, they worshiped him. But some were doubtful. That's really important. Some were doubtful. Have you ever been doubtful in the face of a miraculous event, in the face of God? Has God ever done something to you and still you thought, I'm not really sure that God exists, that God is alive? We all know people like that, people that see, maybe sometimes it's me, maybe sometimes it's you, maybe sometimes it's our neighbor. But people that see the miraculous, see God at work and still say, there is no God. They didn't take that to that extreme, but they were doubtful. Verse 17, when the disciples saw Jesus, they worshiped him. But some were still doubtful. And I think Jesus replies to their doubt with the next couple of verses, the next few verses. Here's what the next two verses say. Verse 18, and Jesus came up and spoke to them, saying, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go, therefore, and make disciples. How does God deal with your and my doubt? That's the question for today. It's the question for the Mountaintop Experience. So, here's what we see. We see that God looks at his disciples, talks to those that are doubting, those that are wondering, those that are questioning, those that are struggling. Maybe that's you. He looks at them, and I've got three things that he does that we see in this text. First of all, he does not rely on what we can see. That's evident, in fact, in verse 17. The disciples are gathered around. They've seen Jesus up on the cross. They've seen him go to the grave. They've seen him dead. They've seen him brutally beaten, hurt, broken. And now they see him alive again. We've seen this a couple of times, actually, where Jesus will look at his apostles, his disciples, but he'll also look at Pharisees, Sadducees, religious leaders, and he will say, this is a wicked generation, one that relies on a sign. So here, verse 17 shows us that even though they've seen something miraculous, they still doubt. They still wonder, what is going on? Is God real? Is Jesus God? They still have their doubts. And Jesus does not answer their doubts by showing them more signs, more wonders. He says, you've seen enough. What you saw didn't cure, didn't heal your doubt. So, here we stand. And I want to prove to you, I want to heal your faith again. But I'm not going to show you something that you need to see. Often when we are looking for something, we miss it. Have you ever looked so hard for something only to find that your keys are in your hand, or your hat is on your head already, or your glasses are already on your face? You've looked so hard, but you've missed the thing that you were looking for. That's something that Jesus avoids here. He says, our expectations, they're right here. But here is what I'm going to do way up here. Something much greater than you would ever expect. I have the best in line for you. So he does not rely on what we can see, or what we're looking for, or what we can expect. And in fact, we all know that in the real world too, don't we? We know that a lot of our friends, maybe even some of our enemies, they have forgotten or walked away from their faith because of what they saw. Jesus does not rely on what we see. How does he deal with our doubt? He doesn't rely on what we can see, but he shows us where to look. I love this in verse 18. Here's what it says. Jesus came up and he spoke to them. Remember who he's talking to? He's talking to his disciples, his apostles, but he's talking to specifically people that are worshiping him and some that are doubtful. He goes to them, he speaks to them, and he says, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. This right here is Jesus saying, look at me. This is the perfect way to witness to somebody, to share your faith with somebody. This is how we do the transference of faith. And this is what God's plan is. God says, it's not all of your good works. All of your good works are like filthy rags. It's not all of the great things that you've done, how much tithe you've given, how much love you've done. None of that. None of that really matters. What matters is the one thing that can change people's heart. That's me, Jesus says. So he says, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. What he's saying right here is, look at me. Point to me. That's how we witness. That's how we share our faith. Point to Jesus. And that's how he begins to heal the disciples' doubt. Some of them were still doubtful. I wonder if that's a description of who we are as a people in this world. Some of them are still doubtful. First thing he does, don't rely on what you can see. Don't rely on your expectations right here. I've got something better for you. And then he says, look at that something better. Look at Jesus. Look at me, he says. All authority has been given to me. If you look at me, if you keep your eyes focused on me, you're going to not be focused on your expectations. You're going to be focused on amazing. That's what I want you to see. I want you to see God. But he goes a little bit further. He doesn't rely on what we can see. He does show us where to look. And then he invites us to have a seat. Verse 19 says this, go, therefore, and make disciples. And that verse continues with the Great Commission. But I love the first few words. Go, therefore, and make disciples. Remember, he's talking to those that are doubting. And he's saying, I've got something great for you. Look at it. Keep your eyes focused on it. But also, it's time for you to go. If you want doubt to be destroyed, if you want faith to be fulfilled, then it's time for you to go. Go, therefore, and do what? Make disciples. So, I love hot sauce. I love good hot sauce. And I'm always looking for some good hot sauce. I discovered some good hot sauce in Central Texas. It's a hot sauce and chips combination that's called Julio's brand. If you're down there in Central Texas, get some of that. Eat some for me, please. Well, this Julio's is amazing. It's great hot sauce. It's great chips dipped in the hot sauce. Ooh, it's a good day. I've got a friend who I know only eats good hot sauce. And one day I was walking past him, he was sitting down, and he was eating some hot sauce. Well, so I know what that means, and you know what that means. It means that he has something amazing right there in front of him. He's not going to just settle for something, okay. So I asked him, what is that? And he told me about it, and here's how he told me about it. He said, why don't you sit down? And he slid the bowl over. He said, try it. And so I tried it, and he was right. It was great. That's what Jesus wants us to do with him. That's how Jesus is going to heal our doubt, is going to restore our faith. He says, the best thing you can do for your faith, if you're doubting, here's what you need to do. Here's how you need to follow my instructions. This is the next level for your faith walk and for church, for the kingdom of God. Here's the next level. Sit down and taste and see that what I've got for you, Jesus says, it's good. And then don't just stop there, because that is a stunted growth situation. Now, once you've tasted, once you've seen, pass the bowl over to somebody. And maybe you would say to them the same thing my friend said to me. Taste this. Have a seat. Have a seat next to me, and you take a chip and you put it in, and I'll take a chip and I'll put it in, and we will enjoy this that is amazing together. And that's just hot sauce. Imagine what happens when I taste and see that the Lord is good, and then I look at my neighbor and I say, now you try. You check this out. I know you're always looking for something amazing, miraculous, great. I've found it. Sit down next to me. That's the place of the disciple. You know that, right? The disciple is a student. And a student of Jesus, what does he do? He sits and he listens to Jesus. And if I'm going to make disciples, what I'm going to do is I'm going to help somebody sit and listen to Jesus. And the best way I can help somebody sit and listen to Jesus, if I am sitting and listening to Jesus as well. And so that is the way that Christ begins to heal the doubt of the disciples. Maybe today your faith will be restored. God bless you.